About a decade ago, scientists observing colonial raider ant spotted something strange. Although the species is unknown to be queenless, a few ants were posing as queen of the colony, lording over their hardworking counterparts. These vulnerable queens had wing stub as well as giant eyes and ovaries. Researchers had long assumed that these workerless social parasite ant, which depends on other worker for survival, acquired these traits one by one through a series of mutation. But now, scientists have discovered that a single mutation of a supergene can turn regular colonial raider ant worker into a lazy queen-like parasite. This was a shocking discovery in which the findings were published. The colonial raider ant is a queenless ant species and no winged female adult have been observed in this species previously. The pseudo queen are born with wings that they shed as adult, but they retain visible scar. They are the same size as worker ant, but their general indifference to labor such as brood care, foraging and nest defense make them stand out in the colony. The researcher isolated the parasite and found that their offspring also had wings, suggesting that the queen-like trait was genetic. They ran analyses to confirm this observation and discovered a mutation in a supergene on chromosome 13. This single mutation may be a switch that turned colonial raider ant from the wild type usually found in nature into a mutant variant of the same species. That actually really surprising given that the parasite differ from the wild types in so many traits, including morphology, anatomy, and even behavior. An associate professor and head of the Laboratory of Social Evolution and Behavior of the Rockefeller University in New York City told about this phenomena. What we describing mutant strain that is extremely closely related to its wild type of ancestor. So it is not really a different species, but maybe what could be considered an intermediate form. The researcher noted that the vulnerable queen laid twice as many eggs as regular colonial raider ants. They can't let their number grow too big, however, because they need the worker. When they become too common, they run into problem. The parasitic catch their bulky wings on their pupal skin when molting, and if there aren't enough workers around to untangle them, many of them die. The sweet spot seems to be when the parasite makes up around a quarter of the colony. When the vulnerable queen proportion was higher, their survival rate plummeted. While some species of exclusively social parasite ant queen exist in the wild, these colonial raider ant in the first documented to have evolved vulnerable within their own species. I was very surprised to find these ant social parasites are typically very rare and can only be found in a few colonies of the host species. But the crazy thing is this case is that the parasite must have arisen within the host colony via a mutation, rather than having infiltrated the colony from outside, which is the case with social parasite in the wild. Ant can be trained to detect cancer in urine, a new study found. Although ant sniffing is a long way from being used as a diagnostic tool in humans, the results are encouraging because ants lack noses. They use olfactory receptor on their antenna to help them find food or sniff out potential mate. Scientists trained nearly 3 dozen silky ant Formica fusa to use this acute olfactory receptor for a different task, finding tumors. In a lab, scientists crafted slices of breast cancer tumor from the human sample onto mice and taught the 35 insects to associate urine from the tumor bearing rodent with sugar. One placed a petri dish. The ant spent 20% more time next to the urine sample containing cancerous tumor versus healthy urine. They just want to eat sugar. the study lead author and the anthologist at North University in France. Because tumor cells contain volatile organic compound that researchers can use as a cancer biomarker, animals such as dog are now ants and can be quickly trained to detect these anomalies through their sense of smell. However, researchers think that ants may have the edge over dogs and other animals that are more time consuming to train. This is the important because of the earlier cancer is detected, the sooner treatment can begin. The researchers are hopeful that cancer sniffing ants have the potential to act as efficient and inexpensive cancer biodetector. Skunks are notorious stinky. The muskox, true to its name, emit a musky scent during mating season, and for some lucky owner, dog paws smell like corn chips. But these are not the only member of the animal kingdom that they are smelly. Perhaps one of the most peculiar sticky animal in right under your nose, ants. Most people have come across ant in their life, so why don't the most people know that ants smell? There are more than 13,000 ant species. Van Klink, an assistant professor of ecology, evolution, organismal biology at State University of Georgia, tells people that he studied these critters. He often gets this question, red ant or black ant? But there are more useful and creative ant to distinguish ant species. One of them is by smell. If I find a species I am familiar with, I might pick it up and crush it. The smell can sometimes help me narrow down which group of ant it might be from. Not all ant species are odorous enough for the human nose to detect their scent. Of those that are, the scent may be mild and some can be smelled only after being crushed. However, some ant can be smelled from a distance if they are in large enough colony. There are four main smells that ants are known to emit. The first is citronella, from the epithet named citronella ant, also known as the larger yellow ant and smaller ant. Although some people describe these ant odor is lemon, the citronella smell thought to be a sometime that they use to defend themselves or make them distasteful to predator. The smell of trap jaw ant is anything but distasteful. It smells like chocolate. These predator ants produce a alarm phenomenon in a gland in their head to let other members of the colony know where they are in danger, and it emits a chocolate-like aroma. Sadly, these ants have to be crushed to be smelled. I have done it only once to see it was true, but normally try to avoid it. Some ants, including wood ant, Formica, and carpenter ants, Componotus, have distinct smell they use for defense in place of stinger. They can stop and bear a formic acid, and they all come together and spray. But one of their own is just enough to give you a slight little wisp to vinegar. However, some people report not being able to smell formic acid. The ability to smell it may be genetic. The final ant smell used to be a controversial, but he and a colleague settled the debate within 2015 study published in journal American. Odorous house ant have long been regarded as smelling like coconut or sometimes like rotten butter. But when I sniffed one of the first time, he was hit by the scent of the blue cheese. So he shipped off the 3 food, including the butter that he left rot in his kitchen, and ant sample to a friend lab, where a tool called a gas chromatograph analyzed the volatile compound released into the air. Then they compared the compound that made up of smell of food and the ant. The team discovered a match between the ant and the blue cheese. At the same time, panic had people rate what they thought the ant smelled like. Most people said blue cheese, but some thought it smelled like rotted coconut. So, rotted a coconut in this backyard and found a mold growing on it that sure enough is the same mold that used to produce blue cheese.